This video was brought to you by Henson Shaving. Trump has had a busy and constitutionally questionable start to his second term. Because unlike in his first term, when it took him a while to find his feet, this time round, Trump and his allies have come prepared and are rushing through a radical agenda. Now, you might expect all of this to provoke some sort of pushback from the Democrats, but they've been conspicuously quiet so far, and polling suggests that the party is unbelievably unpopular, with a recent Quinnipiac poll putting their net approval rating at an all-time low of -26. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the Democrats' internal crisis, why they're so unpopular, and whether they can turn things around. Never miss an episode and always feel in the loop by subscribing and ringing the bell. So let's start with a quick recap of some of the things that Trump has done recently that you might expect Democrats to resist a little more vocally than they had. He suggested annexing multiple territories, threatened trade wars with America's closest allies, appointed some controversial cabinet picks, including Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr., withdrawn from the Paris Climate Agreement, and scrapped many of the climate-related provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act, pardoned January 6 rioters, and put Elon Musk and his gang of 20-somethings in charge of cutting $2 trillion off the federal budget, where they've mostly focused on DEI-related initiatives that were once popular with the Democrats. Nonetheless, despite the fact that this is all obviously, pretty crazy stuff, the Democrats' reaction has been somewhat muted so far. Their leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, only announced a vague plan to resist Trump on Monday, nearly a month after Trump's inauguration, and only after rank-and-file Democrats came out to publicly complain about the party's inaction and threatened to force a government shutdown to stop Doge's efforts to cut down the federal government. Their leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, hasn't done much more either, though. When pressed by the media last week about how the Democrats would resist Trump's agenda, he just said they control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It's their government, which is hardly the kind of fighting talk you might expect from an opposition during such a tumultuous time, and a far cry from the Republicans' attitude during the past 4 years, when they used every trick in the book to obstruct Biden's agenda, even when they only had a minority. On top of this, Democrats are now supremely unpopular. According to a Quinnipiac poll conducted last month, 57% of Americans have an unfavorable view of the Democratic Party, while just 31% have a favorable view. This is the Democrats' worst score since Quinnipiac started asking the question in 2008, and compares poorly with the Republicans. According to that same poll, 45% of Americans have an unfavorable view of the Republican Party, while 43% have a favorable view of them, meaning that the Republicans have a net approval rating an astonishing 24 points higher than the Democrats. CNN polling from early January found something similar. According to that poll, Democrats' net approval rating had fallen to a recent low of -15, and a 54% majority of voters said that they don't think the Democrats will be effective at resisting Republican policies in Congress. This is in large part because Democrats are unpopular with both right and left-leaning voters. That same CNN poll, for instance, found that 58% of Democrats and Democrat-leaning independents think that the Democrats need major changes or to be completely reformed. Again, this is in stark contrast to the Republicans, who have coalesced around Trump, with only 28% of Republicans saying that their party needed reform or major change, down 38% from 2022 when the question was last asked. To top it all off, Gallup polling from earlier this month found that most big-name Democrats are pretty unpopular, with AOC, Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, and Nancy Pelosi all posting net negative approval ratings. In fact, the only Democrat with a net positive approval rating is Hakeem Jeffries, but that's at least in part because a plurality of respondents didn't know who he was. And again, Republicans are faring better here. Most senior Republicans, including Marco Rubio, RFK Jr., and even J.D. Vance, who was renowned for being unpopular during their campaign, have net positive approval ratings. And Trump, who's historically been pretty unpopular by presidential standards, is currently posting some impressive numbers. On Monday, CBS and YouGov released a poll showing that while his specific policies aren't that popular, Trump's approval rating currently stands at 53%, the highest since CBS started polling on Trump in 2017. Polling by Pew from early this month also found something similar, putting Trump's approval rating at 47%, the highest since 2016. And all of this raises two questions. Why aren't the Democrats doing anything, and why are they so unpopular? Well, let's start with the first question. Why aren't they doing anything? Well, some of this is natural. After a big election loss, the opposition usually takes some time to regroup, while the new incumbent enjoy a honeymoon period as they roll out their pre-prepared agenda. Which is why the new administration usually enjoys a poll bounce after coming into office, while the recently ousted losers usually see a decline in the polls. Some of this is also a consequence of the way the American system is set up. Unlike in parliamentary systems, like in the UK, the American system doesn't designate an opposition leader who could spearhead the fight back. Some of it is also that Democrats are struggling with Trump's flood the zone strategy, because all of the media's attention is currently focused on the president's endless stream of eye-catching proposals. And at least some Democrats think that it's better to let Trump freewheel for a bit, presumably on the ground that there's no need to interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake, although Trump's recent poll bump might cast doubt on this strategy. But perhaps the main reason that the Democrats aren't saying all that much is, well, they haven't collectively decided how to react to Trump's victory, which makes it harder for them to act as an effective opposition. Some Democrats think that they need to tack right on cultural issues, some think that they need to tack left on economic issues, and some don't think that the party needs to recalibrate at all, and instead chalk Trump's victory down to an unfortunate combination of inflation and the circumstances surrounding Biden's withdrawal. Whoever's right is sort of by the by. Until the Democrats have collectively decided on their new agenda, they'll struggle to effectively oppose Trump. And this is also one of the big reasons they're unpopular, because it's an accepted truism of democratic politics that divided parties don't win elections. But another reason the Democrats are unpopular is that voters just don't trust them on the salient issues. While voters do trust Democrats more on certain issues, including abortion and climate change, they trust the Republicans far more on questions like border security, crime, and the economy, which have all increased in salience recently. Unless voters' priorities change, or Democrats can persuade voters that they can be trusted on these issues again, they'll struggle in the polls, which is more than a little irritating for Democrat loyalists. Although, admittedly, irritation is something that those of us who shave regularly are all too used to. In fact, lots of people actively don't like shaving. After all, it's expensive, with brands selling overpriced razor cartridges filled with useless technology. And even if you do pay for all of that stuff, you're often left with a bad experience. Razor burn, ingrown hairs, and irritation. That's a problem that Henson Shaving have aimed to solve with their razor, one that's actively designed to protect your skin. In fact, Henson razors are better for 3 reasons. Firstly, Henson's AL13 razor, which they produce at their aerospace machine shop, holds blades at a perfect 30-degree angle, extending the blade only 0.0013 inches past the shave plane. That's less than the thickness of a human hair, and ensures that the blade is supported properly, unlike many other companies' blades, which in turn makes sure that you have a far better shave for your skin. Secondly, they're just cheaper. Those fancy blade cartridges are full of single-use junk, which makes each individual blade vastly more expensive than it has to be. Henson's razor takes totally standard blades, which cost just a few cents, which means that you can save money and can afford to replace your blades more often, so that you don't need to keep dragging a dull razor across your face just to try and get value out of that overpriced plastic. Speaking of plastic, those other cartridges certainly aren't good for the environment either, with 2 billion razor cartridges thrown away every year in the US alone. That's not true of Henson's blades though, which contain 0 plastic, even in their packaging. If you want to try it out, then click the link in the description, add a razor and 100 blades to your cart, and then once you've done that, use our discount code TLDR at checkout, and you'll get all of those blades absolutely free. Using our link and our code also means that they know that you came from us, which really helps us out.